Okay, let's take a look at what we're doing inside here and see how we can make an improvement to this. We certainly don't want to get the photos to be able to update a user's last active property. And if we take a look at the repository method and we go to our users repository and we take a look at the get user by username, then we've got a couple of things going on here. We've got the include photos, which we don't need for the thing that we're doing. And we've also got the single or default async. And that's not quite as efficient as getting a resource from a database as the method above, the find async. If we take a look at this one, this finds an entity with the given primary key values. If an entity with a given primary key values is being tracked by the context, then it's returned immediately without making a request to the database. Otherwise, a query is made to the DB for an entity with a given primary key values, and this entity, if found, is attached to the context and returned. Bit more efficient than the alternative, the single or default. So ideally, for the updating of the last active property, we'd want to use this one. But currently in our token, which we're using to get the user inside our log user activity, we've only got the ability to get the user by username. So let's change that. Let's update our claims principal extensions and give ourselves the ability to get the user by username and also by their ID. In fact, we've got a couple of things to update here because we're going to need to go to our token service first of all. And where we've got our claims here, we need to add an additional claim. And really what I've got here, the name identifier, this one we should use for the user's ID really. And I'll say to string to satisfy the compiler. And then we'll use the name identifier for the ID. And then below this one, we'll say new, and we'll say claim types, and we'll use name, and we'll use this one for the username. So our token is going to contain two claims. And if I just check the terminal and see the stage of hot reloading, maybe that's going to work. So I'll go back to Postman, and if I log in as Lisa and click send and get a new token, and I copy that into my clipboard and I go to the browser, and let's go to jwt.io, and then I paste the token inside here, what we should have now is we've got the name ID which is set to the user ID, and the unique name in this case is Lisa. Don't worry about a slight difference in how this appears inside our token versus what we're doing inside VS Code, because there's different ways of setting these claim types, and when they're converted and decoded, then they sometimes appear as a different thing. But if we specify claim type's name, and then we make sure we use the same thing when we're trying to get the information out of the token, it doesn't really matter what it's called inside the token, as long as we're consistent with how we issue the claims and then read the claims. And now we've done that part, we'll go to our claims principal extensions, and let's copy this static method and paste it below, and update this one to say get user ID. And for the top one, the get username, instead of claim type's name identifier, we're going to use claim type's name and return the username. This one's going to return an int instead of a string, and we still use the user, and we're going to say var user ID equals user find first value. We'll use the name identifier, but in order to return the user ID as an int, then we need to pass this into an integer. So we can use, we'll say user ID equals int.pass, open parentheses, and then wrap that around our method here, and we need to put it to the right of this one. So that's going to pass the name identifier into an integer, and we can use that one instead. So we can go back to our log user activity now, and instead of username, let's get the user ID, and instead of get username, we're going to say get user ID. And then for our repository method, instead of get user by username, we can use get user by ID async and pass in the user ID. Now it's a relatively small, minor improvement, and it's going to be imperceptible, the optimization here, to the human eye, but we will be able to see a slight difference in our logs when we utilize this. And I'm just going to stop the API and restart it. And then we'll check the difference between what we had before and what we currently have now. So now let's restart it. Let's go back to Postman, and we'll need to get a new token first of all. And then let's go and get the user by username and click send. Make sure the functionality is still working. So I can see that timestamp changing, which is fine. And then let's go back to the logs and take a look at the difference. So it's improved. Now we're just selecting the user and we're not selecting the photos. And we're using the find async method, which is a bit more efficient than using single or default async in the repository. And then we're still updating as we were before. So great. But now we're working with dates on our client. We really need to display the dates in a better format than what they currently are, and we'll take a look at that next.